even if U.S. oil majors are allowed back in tomorrow, right? There is, Maduro, also Chavez beforehand, ran not just the economy, but also the oil industry literally into the ground. There's just going to be so much investment needed, repair work, new building, et cetera, to ramp up their capacity. They're only exporting, I think, or producing less than half of what they used to at the peak. So, I mean, this isn't going to happen overnight. This is a story of decades, if not more than that.
We don't know anything about the spare capacity in Venezuela right now. They're only producing 900,000 barrels per day.
Yeah.
For all I know, they were producing 2 million barrels per day at one point. It's possible if the U.S. suddenly, removes all sanctions and then they can double. I mean, let's put it this way. Forget about, we don't even need 1 million barrels per day to take oil price down $5, $10, whatever it is. I mean, if the market starts to think that actually all the Venezuelan oil right now that is stored in this floating storage off the coast of Venezuela is going to basically be released, that will be enough to crush the market. So I don't think, sure, I mean, for Venezuela to realize its full potential as having the world's largest reserves to be able to produce as much of Saudi Arabia, that would take years. But forget about that. If you get there, oil price is going to be $5 a barrel. So I'm not even thinking about that far. I'm thinking about right now, over the next 12 months, assuming that basically that the U.S. managed to affect the regime change, assuming that what follows soon after that is a lifting of all sanctions. I think that's very bearish for oil price on a 12-month horizon. Again, this is very important because there's also another angle to this, which is, of course, Iran. I actually think the Iran story could potentially be the bigger story, actually, between Venezuela and Iran. Because I have to believe, you have to realize that the water shortage in Iran, which has been running now for about the last 6 months, compounding its economic difficulties, has now spawned this massive new wave of protests and riots that's broken out over the last 3 weeks. Now, if you recall, the last time this happened under Obama, and Obama did nothing. He didn't even so much as throw a bone at the protesters in Iran. What Trump is doing right now, he's emboldening the protesters. He's telling the Iranian protester, go out and take out your government, and if the government uses force against you, we're going to basically be there. We're going to hit them back.
Right.
And then he just demonstrated that he could just basically. So I think from that point of view, I actually think, as you know, I live in Israel. Right now I'm having a vacation in Palm Beach in Florida. But I can tell you there's no doubt, having been watching Middle East for the last 20 years, there is no doubt in my mind.
Right.
I think the Iranian regime has never been more vulnerable as now.
Yeah. What about Russia? What's the spillover effect? Do you think that is also a bearish factor going forward for oil space?
I think Russia is also bearish for oil because I think in the end, I actually think the 20-point plan, the 28-point plan, whatever you want to call it, in the end, I think it's a very reasonable agreement. What actually Putin is offering, okay, Zelensky. What he's offering Zelensky is that he's agreeing to stop at the current contact line. Okay, in Zaporozhye and Kherson, which means Russia will be forfeiting at least a third of these two regions that they have already annexed. In exchange, what all Russia wants is the 10% of the Donetsk that they don't yet control, and they're even willing to basically get out of Sumy region, the Kharkiv region where they've taken some land. I would argue, I have to say, I was rather shocked when I saw the proposal because I said, well, why is Putin making such a generous offer? But I actually think the only explanation is that Trump is offering Putin to lift sanctions overnight if you do this. And so from that point of view, this is why, if you think about this, so if Russia, if we see an increase in Russian supply in the market, Iranian, in Venezuela, listen, I don't know where oil prices are going to go, but I can tell you one thing is very clear, is that OPEC is going to be in deep trouble. OPEC is going to be in deep trouble. And by the way, there will be winners and losers. I happen to be I'm very bullish on India because I think that Asia obviously will be the biggest beneficiaries from lower oil price, the likes of Japan and South Korea, especially India. I'm so bullish in India, I can't even tell you because, the Indian stock market was the worst performing stock market in 2025. Notwithstanding the fact India was still, once again, the fastest growing economy in the world. everybody and their grandmother's underweight India at this point because everybody was chasing after AI and so on and so forth. I think in 2026, I
Exactly.
think you're going to see India doing very well.